There is a story that the Catholic Church did everything in its power to erase from human memory, a secret so disturbing that it was locked away in the most secretive archives of the Vatican for 300 years. While you grew up believing you understood the deepest mysteries of the Christian faith, a dark truth remained hidden in the underground caverns of the Holy See, waiting to be revealed to those brave enough to face what the Church itself deemed too dangerous to be known. The story of the Headless Nun is not just a tale of Catholic horror, it is a window into ancient secrets that unveil connections between demonic possession, Vatican conspiracies, and occult practices that infiltrated Christianity since its earliest days. What you are about to uncover will challenge everything you thought you knew about the nature of spirituality, the power of religious institutions, and the reality of supernatural forces operating behind the scenes of our world. This is not a story for the faint of heart, but for those prepared to confront truths that may completely transform their understanding of the spiritual realm and the hidden forces that continue to influence our lives in ways we rarely dare to imagine. Why did an 18th-century cloistered nun become such a grave threat to the Catholic Church that her very existence had to be erased from official history? Why did the Vatican deem it necessary to preserve her severed head as a sacred artifact, hiding it within secret rituals still practiced to this day? The answer to these questions goes far beyond any simple case of demonic possession. It reveals a web of hidden secrets connecting supernatural manifestations, lost manuscripts, forbidden doctrines, and a religious conspiracy that spans centuries. Every revelation you are about to receive has been extracted from hidden records to which only a handful of people in the world have ever had access, documents the Church itself tried to destroy, yet which survived as testimony to a spiritual reality far more complex and disturbing than any official doctrine has ever admitted. This story is not merely about events of the past, it is about hidden forces still at work today, influencing decisions at the highest levels of religious and political power. Prepare yourself for a journey through the darkest mysteries of humanity's secret history, where each revelation opens the door to even deeper and more transformative truths. In the silent corridors of a convent lost to history, where the walls whisper ancient secrets, a nun named Maria began to exhibit behaviors that defied all human understanding. It was the 18th century, and within those sacred walls, something extraordinary, or perhaps sinister, was about to be revealed. The other sisters were the first to notice the subtle signs, objects moving without explanation, whispers in unknown tongues echoing through empty hallways, and a malevolent presence that seemed to cling to Maria like a persistent shadow. What began as minor anomalies would soon unfold into a religious mystery that shook the very foundations of the Catholic Church. The young nun, once known for her exemplary devotion and the silence imposed by sacred order, began to demonstrate impossible knowledge about distant events and ancient languages she had never studied. During sacred rituals, she spoke in ancient Aramaic, describing intimate details of saints' lives that did not appear in any known manuscripts. The spiritual inquisitors called to investigate were stunned by supernatural manifestations that defied any rational explanation. Maria levitated during prayers, her eyes turned completely black, and esoteric symbols mysteriously appeared etched into the skin of her hands. It was as if a trapped entity had found in her the perfect vessel to manifest in the physical world. The phenomenon escalated when Maria began producing automatic writings in multiple dead languages, revealing hidden truths about church history that were meant to remain buried forever. These lost manuscripts contained information about Vatican conspiracies, forbidden rituals, and a secret doctrine that could shake the very foundations of the Christian faith. The cloistered nuns witnessed her writing non-stop for hours, producing page after page of hidden revelations that spoke of sacred artifacts hidden deep within the caves of the Vatican. Spiritual dread overtook the convent when they realized Maria had no awareness of what she was writing, as if something beyond her was using her hands as a conduit. Hidden records from that period show that the manifestations grew increasingly violent and disturbing. Maria began speaking of a demonic pact forged centuries earlier, involving forbidden relics and Christian symbols corrupted by occult practices. During exorcisms, she revealed details of a secret sect operating within the very walls of the Vatican, an order that practiced Christian occultism disguised as religious devotion. The words coming from her mouth were not her own, they belonged to a malevolent entity that knew the Church's deepest secrets, including the location of incorrupt bodies and the truth behind dark miracles the official history would never acknowledge. The case took on alarming proportions when Maria began to prophesy future events with terrifying precision, always tied to scandals and religious conspiracies that would come to light decades later. Her demonic possession extended beyond physical phenomena. She had access to information stored in the most protected secret archives of the Holy See. The inquisitors realized they were facing something far greater than a simple possession. It was as if all the truths the Church had tried to bury for centuries were being revealed through this nun. The occult symbolism surrounding Maria suggested connections to ancient pagan practices secretly absorbed into early Christianity. The situation became unbearable when Maria began speaking of the existence of a special child, born under mysterious circumstances, who would be the key to understanding not only her possession, but an entire web of secrets reaching the highest levels of ecclesiastical hierarchy. Her final whispered words spoke of a birth that would divide the Church itself, a spiritual revelation that would force religious leaders to question everything they believed. The veil of deception was beginning to tear, and Maria seemed to be just the first sign that something far greater was about to manifest, something that connected her case to even deeper and more disturbing mysteries. A few months before Maria's first manifestations, a reference was found in the Vatican's hidden records, one that spoke of a birth so extraordinary it would shake the very foundations of the Christian faith. A child was born under circumstances so bizarre they split the Catholic Church into secret factions, each interpreting the event in radically different ways. This was no ordinary birth. The child came into the world during a solar eclipse, surrounded by phenomena that defied any scientific explanation of the time. Esoteric symbols spontaneously appeared on the walls of the room where the birth took place, and a demonic presence was felt by all in attendance, creating a religious mystery that would echo through the corridors of ecclesiastical power for centuries. What disturbed the spiritual inquisitors most was the fact that the child's mother died in childbirth, but continued whispering prayers in Latin for hours after her death. The Church was immediately divided into two irreconcilable currents of thought regarding the nature of this mysterious child. One faction, led by conservative cardinals, believed they were facing a demonic manifestation that had to be contained at all costs, scouring the secret archives for historical precedents. The other faction, composed of the more progressive theologians of the time, saw in the birth a possible dark miracle, a divine message that challenged the Church's official doctrine. Lost manuscripts from that period reveal heated debates deep within the Vatican's catacombs, where religious leaders argued over whether to exorcise the child or protect it as a sacred artifact. This division birthed a Vatican conspiracy that would stretch across generations, influencing decisions that shaped the Church's secret history. The debate between spiritual and scientific explanations reached unprecedented levels of tension within the ecclesiastical hierarchy. While some claimed the child was the result of a demonic pact made by ancestors long past, others insisted that paranormal phenomena had always accompanied the births of saints and mystics throughout history. The Christian symbols that spontaneously appeared around the child were interpreted in completely opposite ways. Some saw them as signs of heresy and occultism, others as manifestations of an ongoing spiritual revelation. The secret sect already operating within the Church believed the birth confirmed ancient prophecies about an imprisoned entity returning to the world through a pure intermediary. This interpretation gave rise to theories about ritual sacrifices and forbidden doctrines that had paved the way for this extraordinary event. Pressure mounted to make an official decision about the child's fate, especially as reports of supernatural manifestations began to spread across nearby convents. Cloistered nuns described disturbing visions, sacred objects moved without explanation, and a spiritual dread consumed all who approached the place where the child was being kept. Vatican investigators discovered that the child possessed impossible knowledge for their age, speaking in ancient tongues and understanding complex theological texts. Even more unsettling was the child's ability to reveal personal secrets of the clergymen who visited, secrets seemingly pulled from the hidden archives of their very souls. Concealing the truth became the only viable strategy to prevent a scandal of catastrophic proportions. The final decision was made in a secret meeting deep beneath the Vatican. The child would be cut off from the outside world through forced cloistering in a remote convent. This compromise partially satisfied both factions. The conservatives succeeded in isolating the perceived demonic threat, while the progressives ensured the child would not be eliminated. However, this decision created a web of secrets and lies that spread like an invisible net through the entire ecclesiastical structure. The manipulated faith of the masses never knew of this child's existence, but her influence began to manifest in unexpected ways through those who came into contact with her. The enforced silence surrounding the case became an institutional obsession, generating a security protocol that would later be used to cover up other equally disturbing mysteries. What no one could have foreseen was that this child, growing up in an environment of extreme religiosity and fear, would develop a deep connection with forces that transcended human understanding. Her presence in the convent began to subtly but profoundly alter reality around her, setting the stage for others, like Sister Maria, to become vessels for even more powerful and disturbing manifestations. The enigmas of faith surrounding this mysterious child were only the beginning of a chain of supernatural events that would transform that convent into the epicenter of paranormal phenomena capable of challenging even the most experienced inquisitors of the Catholic Church. The convent that housed both the mysterious child and Sister Maria had become a true epicenter of supernatural manifestations that defied any rational explanation. The cloistered nuns began reporting impossible events happening on a daily basis. Sacred objects levitated during prayers, esoteric symbols appeared carved into the walls during the night, and a malevolent presence lingered over the site like an invisible yet palpable fog. Testimonies collected by spiritual inquisitors revealed a disturbing pattern of phenomena that intensified whenever Maria and the child were in the same room. Spiritual fear overtook every resident, creating an atmosphere of constant tension where any shadow could be hiding a demonic entity. Paranormal investigations from the time documented over 50 distinct supernatural events within a period of just 6 months. Maria's levitations became more frequent and dramatic, to the point where she remained suspended in the air for extended periods, always accompanied by chants in unknown tongues that echoed through the convent's walls. During these episodes, the Christian symbols adorning the chapel began to bleed, creating a scene of Catholic horror that terrified even the most seasoned clergy in cases of demonic possession. Maria's automatic writing produced lost manuscripts containing revelations about ancient church secrets, including references to sacred rituals that had been corrupted by occult practices over the centuries. Clergymen witnessed her writing in multiple languages simultaneously, using both hands to produce different texts detailing Vatican conspiracies and forbidden doctrines. The occult symbolism present in her writing suggested knowledge far beyond any formal education a cloistered nun could have ever received. Objects moved with a mind of their own, always following patterns that seemed to transmit coded messages about the suppressed history of the Catholic Church. Crucifixes turned upside down during Mass, candles flickered on and off in sequences matching codes found in the Vatican's secret archives, and forbidden relics that had been sealed away for centuries began to exhibit supernatural properties. The nuns reported prayer books opening on their own to specific pages referencing outlawed sects and heretical practices. At night, footsteps echoed through empty hallways, always heading toward the cell where the mysterious child was kept. Hidden records from that time reveal that objects disappeared from locked rooms only to reappear in ritualistic arrangements, suggesting the presence of a secret sect operating within the convent itself. The growing sense of isolation transformed the convent into a psychological prison, where each nun lived in a constant state of spiritual alertness. The forced cloistering that was already part of religious life intensified when the superiors banned any contact with the outside world, fearing that the paranormal phenomena might spread beyond the sacred walls. The manifestations grew more violent during exorcisms, when demonic entities seemed to use the consecrated environment as a stage to demonstrate their power over the symbols of Christian faith. Witnesses reported episodes in which all the convent's windows flew open simultaneously during storms, creating sounds that resembled the wails of tormented souls. The sacred silence imposed by the order was shattered by screams and whispers that came from no identifiable human source, yet could be heard clearly echoing through the halls in the darkest hours of night. Investigators sent by the Vatican documented phenomena that challenged not only the science of the time but also traditional knowledge of demonic possession and spiritual manifestations. Old photographs showed unexplainable orbs of light floating around Maria during trance episodes, while the convent's temperature dropped drastically whenever the demonic presence intensified. Thermometers from the period recorded plunges of over 20 degrees within minutes, creating a supernatural cold that sank into the bones of witnesses. During these moments, the nuns reported shared visions of hooded figures performing ritual sacrifices in the subterranean caverns beneath the convent's foundations. These visions revealed connections to a network of secret tunnels linking the site to other important points in a religious conspiracy that spanned across Europe. The climax of the paranormal phenomena occurred when Maria began to prophesy future events specifically related to the fate of her own severed head, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that terrified even the most fearless inquisitors. Her final words during possession episodes always returned to the same theme: the need to preserve her head as a sacred artifact containing both the secrets and the dangers of her connection to the spiritual world. Records show that these prophecies coincided precisely with secret plans being developed at the highest levels of the Vatican hierarchy, as if the entity possessing Maria had direct access to decisions that hadn't yet been made. This final revelation created an impossible dilemma for the Church: how to deal with a nun who knew secrets that not even the cardinals had spoken aloud, and whose death appeared to be part of a greater plan no one could fully comprehend. The Vatican's decision to completely cover up the case of Maria was not made impulsively, but rather as the result of a cold, calculated analysis of the risks her story posed to the stability of the Catholic Church worldwide. The secret archives reveal that emergency meetings were convened deep within the Vatican's catacombs, where cardinals and spiritual inquisitors debated intensely about the implications of making public a case involving demonic possession, precise prophecies, and impossible knowledge of the Church's ancient secrets. The fear of scandal was not unfounded. The Church was already facing increasing challenges to its authority, and the revelation that a possessed nun had access to classified information could have triggered an unprecedented crisis of faith. The Vatican conspiracy to erase Maria from history began as an institutional protection measure but quickly evolved into a complex operation of truth suppression spanning multiple generations of ecclesiastical leaders. The potential impact on the faith of believers was seen as catastrophic by strategists of the Holy See, especially because Maria's revelations touched on core aspects of Catholic doctrine that had never been questioned publicly. Her supernatural manifestations went beyond mere phenomena. She revealed details about the suppressed history of the Church, including information on secret sects operating within the ecclesiastical hierarchy and Christian occult practices that directly contradicted the institution's public image. The lost manuscripts produced during her possession episodes contained references to forbidden doctrines which, if revealed, could inspire widespread heretical movements. The manipulated faith of the masses depended on maintaining an official narrative, one that excluded any connection to occult symbolism, corrupted sacred rituals, or the presence of malevolent entities operating through consecrated members. The Church recognized that it was facing a spiritual time bomb, one that could destroy centuries of carefully constructed public trust. The systematic suppression of documents related to the case began immediately after Maria's death, with explicit orders for all records to be transferred to the deepest levels of the Vatican archives. This historical cleansing operation involved not only the removal of physical evidence but also the silencing or relocation of all witnesses who had observed the most compromising paranormal events. The cloistered nuns who had lived alongside Maria were reassigned to remote convents under absolute vows of silence, creating a web of imposed secrecy that would persist for decades. The spiritual inquisitors who had investigated the case were given new assignments in distant territories, effectively removing them from any position where they could share their experiences. This strategy of dispersion and isolation ensured that no complete version of the story could be reconstructed by future investigators, creating intentional gaps in the documentation that made it impossible to verify the truth. The veil of deception built around Maria's case became a model for future church cover-up operations, establishing protocols that would be used to suppress other equally disturbing religious mysteries. The experience taught Vatican leadership that certain types of spiritual revelations were incompatible with maintaining social and religious order, especially when they involved direct connections between the divine and practices the official doctrine classified as demonic. The Catholic horror of Maria's case was not only in the supernatural events themselves, but in how those events exposed fundamental contradictions in the Church's historical narrative. The secrets she revealed during her trances included information about Vatican-funded archaeological expeditions to recover sacred artifacts with occult properties, links between religious leaders and secret societies, and evidence that some officially recognized miracles had far more complex and ambiguous origins than the official version allowed. The institutional paranoia that developed after Maria's case transformed the Holy See into an even more secretive and controlling organization, where any sign of unusual spiritual phenomena was immediately investigated and, if necessary, suppressed. The protocols developed to manage her case included specific procedures to identify and isolate individuals who showed similar paranormal abilities, creating an internal monitoring network that persists to this day. The secret sect that formed within the Vatican's own structure had a singular mission: to ensure that cases like Maria's would never again threaten the institution's stability. This hidden order operated across multiple generations, passing knowledge and responsibilities hereditarily within specific families who swore to protect the Church's most dangerous secrets. The eternal cloistering of certain truths became an institutional obsession, shaping policies and decisions for centuries to come. The final irony in the Church's attempt to erase Maria from history was that the very effort to hide her existence left behind clues and evidence that future investigators could trace to reconstruct her story. The deliberately created holes in official documentation, the mysterious personnel transfers, and the vague references in later censored texts formed a pattern that pointed to something significant being hidden. The demonic presence that manifested through Maria seemed to have anticipated this attempt at concealment, leaving traces in places and forms the conspiracy planners could neither predict nor control. Contemporary Vatican archives still contain documentary anomalies that point to missing records, creating a negative map of the history that was suppressed. This situation created the perfect paradox: the more the Church tried to hide Maria, the more her absence became evident to those who knew how to look for the intentional gaps in the official narrative. Even after her physical death, Maria continued to haunt the Vatican's secret archives in ways that defied all rational understanding of existence beyond the grave. The most protected records contain cryptic references to post-mortem manifestations that occurred whenever someone attempted to access documents related to her case, as if her restless soul remained eternally bound to the secrets she had revealed during her demonic possession. Librarians and archivists reported supernatural experiences while handling the few documents that survived the official purge, pages turning on their own, texts changing content when no one was looking, and a malevolent presence manifested through sudden drops in temperature and whispers in ancient tongues. The entity that had once used Maria as a vessel appeared to have established a permanent connection with the physical records of her existence, turning the Vatican's archives themselves into a spiritual battleground where past and present intertwined in impossible ways. Theories developed by internal investigators suggest that what remains hidden in the deepest levels of the Vatican's secret archives paints a disturbing picture of ancient secrets far beyond Maria's individual case. Fragmentary documents suggest she was not an isolated incident, but part of a historical pattern of demonic manifestations the Church had been suppressing for centuries, creating a religious conspiracy of epic proportions. The lost manuscripts she produced during her trance states included detailed maps of the Vatican's underground caverns, including sealed chambers said to house sacred artifacts with occult properties deemed too dangerous to be studied. Cryptic references in her writings point to the existence of a secret library containing texts on forbidden doctrines, necromantic rituals adapted to Christian use, and full records of every possession case the Church had chosen to conceal. This phantom library would be the true hidden treasure of the Vatican, not gold or jewels, but spiritual knowledge so dangerous that its revelation could completely redefine humanity's understanding of spiritual reality. The most disturbing suggestion found in the surviving fragments of Maria's writings is that her severed head was preserved not as a macabre trophy, but as a sacred artifact with specific mystical properties. The sacred rituals described in her automatic writings included detailed procedures for preserving the body parts of spiritually contaminated individuals as a means of containing malevolent entities that might continue to manifest through mortal remains. This practice, combining elements of Christian occultism with far older traditions of ritual magic, suggests that the Church's leadership possessed knowledge of the spiritual world never shared with common believers. Maria's head became a focal point for demonic energies, requiring specific care and containment rituals to prevent the spread of her malevolent presence to others or other places. Hidden records suggest that this forbidden relic still exists, guarded in a special chamber where it continues to be the object of secret ceremonies performed by a sacred order dedicated specifically to the containment of spiritual threats. The esoteric symbolism present in Maria's final writings included specific references to future events that would unfold centuries after her death, creating a temporal bridge between her revelations and contemporary developments within the Catholic Church. These post-mortem prophecies included detailed descriptions of scandals that would only come to light in the 21st century, suggesting that the entity which had possessed her had access to the Church's future timeline. The prophetic enigmas contained in her visions described with unsettling precision events such as the discovery of compromising documents thought to have been destroyed, the rise of technologies enabling deeper investigation into covered-up historical cases, and even changes in papal leadership that would affect the Vatican's transparency policies. This posthumous prophetic capacity transformed Maria into a kind of involuntary oracle whose words continued to manifest decades after her physical death, placing the Church in a position of constantly being confronted by consequences she had foretold with supernatural foresight. The modern paranoia within the Vatican's inner circles about Maria's resurgence intensified with the rise of new investigative technologies and documentary analysis. Independent researchers began identifying patterns in archival gaps that pointed specifically to cases of deliberate record suppression, and some came dangerously close to reconstructing parts of Maria's story through circumstantial evidence. The secret sect charged with keeping her truths buried had to adapt their operations to the digital age, developing new methods to divert investigations and confuse researchers who approached too close to the truth. Yet the demonic presence associated with Maria seemed to evolve with the times, manifesting through electronic anomalies in computer systems, unexplained failures in digital equipment used to access her records, and even manipulating search algorithms to obscure related information. This spiritual war between forces seeking to reveal and those striving to conceal continues to unfold in the deepest layers of the Vatican's secret archives. The final mystery still troubling the guardians of Maria's secrets is the question of whether her restless soul is working to reveal or to protect the truths she once carried. The paranormal phenomena linked to her record sometimes appear to aid discovery, guiding researchers toward specific documents or revealing clues at crucial moments in investigations. At other times, the same manifestations create insurmountable obstacles, destroying evidence or terrorizing investigators into abandoning their pursuit. This fundamental ambiguity about the intentions of Maria's spiritual presence has created a scenario in which even the Church's own masters of concealment cannot determine whether she is ally or adversary. The possibility that Maria continues to operate across multiple dimensions of existence, affecting events both physical and spiritual, has turned her case into an ontological enigma that defies traditional categories of life, death, and spiritual power, setting the stage for even more disturbing revelations about the true nature of the secrets the Catholic Church continues to guard at any cost. We have reached the end of this extraordinary journey through the darkest and most secret mysteries of the Catholic Church's history, where we uncovered layers of ancient secrets buried for centuries in the depths of the Vatican archives. The story of Maria, the possessed nun whose severed head became a sacred artifact of immeasurable power, represents only the tip of the iceberg of a religious conspiracy that stretches across the very foundations of the Holy See. Every revelation we shared today was carefully extracted from hidden records and lost manuscripts that only a handful of people in the world have ever had the privilege to access. In exploring these enigmas of faith, we have touched truths that the Church itself deemed too dangerous for the common faithful to know. The demonic presence that manifested through Maria continues to influence contemporary events, proving that certain spiritual forces transcend the normal boundaries of time and space. This is not merely a story of the past, it is a revelation about hidden forces still operating in the shadows of contemporary spiritual reality. The knowledge you've acquired today about the Vatican's hidden secrets represents a form of spiritual education unavailable in any official academic or religious institution. The connections we explored between demonic possession, Vatican conspiracies, and the suppression of truth reveal patterns of power and control that repeat across multiple dimensions of the human experience. Understanding how the Catholic Church developed its methods of information suppression helps us recognize similar strategies being used by other powerful institutions in our own time. The Catholic horror embodied in Maria's case is not just a historical phenomenon, it is a prime example of how supernatural forces can manifest through individuals who become unwilling channels for entities that defy our conventional understanding of reality. This expanded awareness of the nature of spiritual possession and paranormal manifestations can radically transform your perspective on inexplicable events happening around you. The hidden symbolism within Maria's story offers keys to decoding other religious mysteries still buried within spiritual traditions across the globe. The paranormal investigation we've undertaken today through the dark corridors of the cursed convent and the secret caverns of the Vatican demonstrates the importance of questioning official narratives and seeking truths that were deliberately concealed. Every secret sect, every forbidden doctrine, every corrupted sacred ritual we uncovered represents a piece of a much larger puzzle about the true nature of human spirituality and the unseen forces that shape our reality. The cloistered nuns who witnessed the supernatural phenomena surrounding Maria teach us about the courage required to face truths that challenge our most deeply held beliefs. The forced isolation and imposed silence that characterize the Church's response to Maria's case are strategies still recognizable today, used to suppress inconvenient truths across a broad range of topics. This awareness makes us more resistant to institutional manipulation and more capable of identifying when we are being deliberately kept in ignorance about matters we have a right to know. The sect of silence that operates within the Vatican represents an archetype of secret organizations that exist at multiple levels of modern society. The sacred artifacts and forbidden relics we discovered throughout our exploration reveal how physical objects can become repositories of spiritual energy that transcends the normal laws of physics. Maria's severed head, preserved as a focal point for demonic forces, teaches us about the persistence of consciousness after physical death and the methods through which spiritual entities can continue to influence the material world. This understanding carries profound implications for our view of consciousness, death, and the possibility of communication across dimensions of existence. The spiritual fear that defined the ecclesiastical response to Maria's case reflects an intuitive recognition that there are aspects of spiritual reality far beyond what official doctrine is willing to acknowledge. The supernatural manifestations documented within the convent demonstrate that the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds is far more porous and active than most people realize. The containment rituals developed to manage Maria's demonic presence offer practical insights into spiritual protection methods that can be adapted for contemporary situations involving exposure to negative energetic influences. The spiritual revelation emerging from Maria's case transcends denominational boundaries and offers universal insight into the nature of mystical experience and the responsibilities that come with access to advanced spiritual knowledge. Her ability to access ancient secrets during possession states shows that human consciousness can act as an antenna for information existing in dimensions beyond linear time and space. This understanding revolutionizes our perspective on intuition, creative inspiration, and other phenomena where seemingly impossible knowledge emerges spontaneously within the mind. The lost manuscripts produced through Maria during her altered states offer a model for understanding how individuals may become channels for wisdom far beyond their personal experience or formal education. The suppressed history she unveiled, about the links between Christianity and older occult traditions, helps us understand how different spiritual systems influence each other over time, forming syntheses that are richer and more complex than any single tradition. The dark symbolism in her visions provides a vocabulary for decoding other esoteric texts and mystical experiences that seem incomprehensible when approached from purely rational frameworks. The journey we've completed today through the most disturbing and profound mysteries of hidden religious history is only the beginning of a much greater exploration of truths long withheld from humanity. Every secret we revealed opened doors to dozens of other equally important and fascinating mysteries, creating a web of interconnected knowledge that spans cultures, eras, and spiritual traditions. The courage you demonstrated in confronting these taboo and controversial topics is a sign that your consciousness is ready for even deeper levels of revelation and understanding. The patterns of truth suppression we identified in Maria's case exist in countless other areas of human experience, waiting to be exposed by courageous investigators unafraid to face inconvenient realities. The demonic presence that manifested through Maria can be seen as a metaphor for all the hidden forces influencing our lives in ways we rarely recognize consciously. This adventure through the world's most dangerous spiritual archives has prepared us to face future mysteries with the same discernment and determination we applied to the story of the headless nun who defied the highest powers of the Catholic Church, and continues to influence events across dimensions that transcend our ordinary understanding of reality.